Under the stars of a night sky, the spring wind whipped the banners on the towers of Montefalcone Castle. The sun was just beginning to rise above the horizon, painting the sky in golden pink tones. A crowd had already gathered in the square before the castle. Today was the day of the grand night tournament. Isabella stood at the window of her chambers, looking down at the bustle below. She was 18, and her entire life was planned down to the minute, like the score of a church choir. The daughter of Duke Aldrich de Montefalcone had to be perfect, educated, refined, obedient. Her hands had never touched rough work. Her feet had never stepped beyond what was permitted. Her heart, her heart was to belong to whomever her father chose. In a month's time, she was to be betrothed to Count Lorenzo di Rovigo, a middle-aged man, wealthy, influential, boring as a Sunday sermon. She had seen him twice. Both times he spoke only of his estates, politics, profitable alliances. "My lady, it's time to go down," came the voice of her maid Martha. "The tournament is beginning." Isabella nodded, threw a velvet cloak the color of the night sky over her shoulders, and headed downstairs. The stands were full of nobility, ladies in luxurious dresses, cavaliers in embroidered doublets, priests, merchants, even commoners who were allowed to watch from afar. The smell of roasted meat, spices, and horse sweat mixed in the air. Isabella took her place next to her father on the honorary stand. Duke Aldrich was stern and majestic, as always. Beside him sat Count Lorenzo, saying something about taxes in the southern provinces. "My daughter," the Duke turned to her. "Count Lorenzo was so kind as to send you this ring as a gift. Accept it with gratitude." Isabella extended her hand, and Lorenzo placed a heavy gold ring with an emerald on her finger. Cold. Foreign. "I thank you, my lord," she whispered, lowering her eyes. At that moment, a rider entered the arena, and the whole world stopped. He was unlike the other knights. The others rode out decorously, with dignity, in gleaming armor, on well-groomed horses. He burst onto the arena on a black stallion like a storm, raising a cloud of dust. His armor was simple, almost crude, but strong. Long, dark hair flew in the wind. A scar crossed his left cheek. He did not bow to the stand, did not incline his head before the Duke. He simply turned his horse, looked straight at Isabella, boldly, mockingly, freely, and smirked. Her breath caught. "Who is that?" she whispered, turning to Martha standing behind her chair. "Aidan de Valtra, my lady," the maid answered. "The Baron's son. They say he's wild as a wolf, competes in tournaments but never observes the rules of propriety. His father is in despair." "Wild," Isabella repeated, not taking her eyes off the rider. The herald announced the beginning of the first duel. Aidan was to fight Sir Benedict, an experienced knight from the Duke's own retinue. They rode to opposite ends of the arena, lances ready, shields raised. The trumpet, and they charged at each other. The collision was deafening. Aidan's lance struck right in the center of Benedict's shield, and he flew out of the saddle like a sack of grain. The crowd gasped. Aidan didn't even stop. He galloped across the arena, turned his horse, and looked at the stand again. At her. Isabella felt her cheeks flush. "Impudent," Duke Aldrich hissed. "Upstart. The Baron's son behaves as if he were king." But Isabella didn't hear. She watched as Aidan dismounted, as he threw his helmet to the ground, as he laughed, accepting congratulations from other young knights. In that moment, she understood. Her perfectly constructed life was about to collapse. And the tournament continued all day. Aidan won every duel. He fought breaking the rules. Too fast, too bold, too dangerous. But he won. By evening, he reached the finals against Sir Rodrigo, last year's champion. The entire castle froze in anticipation. Two riders at opposite ends of the arena. The setting sun painted everything blood red. The trumpet. They rushed toward each other. This time, Aidan missed. Rodrigo's lance struck his chest, and he swayed in the saddle but held on. They turned. Again. The second strike. Aidan hit precisely. Rodrigo flew from his saddle. The crowd exploded with shouts. Aidan de Valtera, tournament champion. The Duke rose to present the prize. Isabella also stood. By tradition, it was the lady who should place the wreath on the victor's head. Aidan approached the stand, dropped to one knee, but his eyes were full of mockery. Isabella descended the steps, holding the laurel wreath in her hands. She approached him. Her hands trembled. Congratulations, Sir Aidan. Her voice was quiet but firm. I thank you, my lady. His voice was low, husky. She placed the wreath on his head. Their eyes met, very close. And in that moment, she didn't know how it happened. Their fingers touched. Electricity ran across her skin. Aidan smirked, as if reading her thoughts. Until we meet again, my lady, he whispered, so only she could hear, and left. Isabella stood, unable to move, feeling her heart beating somewhere in her throat. That night, she couldn't sleep. She lay in her huge canopy bed, stared at the ceiling, and saw his eyes. Bold, free, dangerous. She had never felt anything like this. All her life she had been taught to control emotions, to be restrained, obedient, proper. But now something inside her rebelled. At dawn she rose, threw on a simple cloak, and quietly slipped from her chambers. Martha was still asleep. The guards in the corridors dozed after yesterday's feast. Isabella descended the spiral staircase, passed through the kitchen where they were just beginning to light the hearths, and went out into the garden. The morning air was fresh and cool. Dew glistened on the grass. Birds began their songs. She walked, not knowing where, just walked, breathing in the freedom she so lacked. And suddenly she heard the sound of hooves. She turned. On a black horse, in a simple shirt and leather trousers, without armor, he rode. Aidan. He stopped the horse beside her, dismounted, approached. The Duke's daughter walks alone at dawn? Mockery sounded in his voice. That's dangerous, my lady. More dangerous than talking with you, Sir Aidan? She was surprised by her own boldness. He laughed. The sound was warm, alive. Probably not. They say I'm bad company. And why is that? Because I don't follow rules. I don't like to pretend. I don't want to live in a cage, even a golden one. Isabella was silent. These words resonated in her soul like bells. And do you want to live in a cage? He looked straight into her eyes. She hesitated. I don't know. I never thought I had a choice. There's always a choice. Aidan extended his hand. Want to see the world beyond your castle walls? Isabella looked at his hand. Rough, with scars from swords. So unlike the pale, manicured palms of courtiers. She knew she should refuse. Return to the castle. Forget this meeting. But instead, she extended her hand and placed it in his. Aidan seated her on the horse in front of him. Isabella had never ridden like this, always only in a lady's saddle, decorously, accompanied by guards. Hold on tight, he whispered in her ear. And they raced off. The horse flew like the wind. Isabella gripped the mane, feeling her heart pounding from fear and exhilaration at once. Aidan controlled the horse with one hand, the other holding her firmly around the waist. They galloped through the forest, through fields, past villages where peasants were waking. The sun rose higher, flooding the world with golden light. Finally, they stopped atop a hill from which a view of the entire valley opened. Isabella dismounted, barely standing on her legs from the feelings overwhelming her. She laughed and cried at the same time. I've never felt so alive. She spread her arms, turning her face to the wind. Aidan watched her and smiled. Welcome to real life, my lady. Call me Isabella. Just Isabella. Then I'm just Aidan. They stood atop the hill, looking at each other, and between them an invisible thread seemed to stretch, binding them forever. From that day, they began meeting secretly. Isabella would slip from the castle at dawn when everyone was still asleep. Aidan waited for her in the forest. They rode horses, explored the surroundings, talked about everything. He told her about his life, about how his father wanted to make him an obedient courtier, but he ran away to knight tournaments, about how he dreamed of going to distant lands, seeing the sea, fighting real enemies, not in exhibition duels. She told him about her dreams, about books she read in secret, about wanting to see the world, about fear of a future with no place for her desires. Will your father really marry you to that count? Aidan asked once. They lay on the grass by a forest stream looking at clouds. Yes, Isabella answered quietly. In 2 weeks, there will be a betrothal. Aidan clenched his fists. Do you want to marry him? No. Then don't. It's not that simple. Why? He turned to her. Why can't you just say no? Because I'm a duke's daughter. Because alliances, politics, the security of our lands depend on this marriage. Because, because they've trained you to live not for yourself, Aidan finished for her. Isabella fell silent. Tears welled up in her throat. I can't, I can't abandon everything. Father, duty. It would be betrayal. Aidan sat up, hugged his knees. You know what I think? Real betrayal is betraying yourself, living your whole life not as yourself. He stood, extended his hand. Come on, I'll show you something. They rode for another hour until they reached an old tower at the edge of the Duke's lands, an abandoned place everyone had forgotten. Aidan helped her climb the crumbling staircase to the very top, and from there opened a view of the entire kingdom, of mountains in the distance, of forests, of a river winding like a silver ribbon, of villages looking like toy houses. There it is, Aidan said, standing beside her. Freedom. It's right here. You just have to reach out and take it. Isabella looked at the horizon and something broke inside her. All those walls she'd built over the years. All that fear, obedience, propriety. I want to be free, she whispered. I want to be with you. Aidan turned her to face him. His hands rested on her shoulders. Then be, right now, and he kissed her. The first kiss of her life, tender and passionate at once. The taste of freedom and danger. The taste of real life, not the one planned for her. When their lips parted, Isabella was crying. I love you, she said. God, I love you, even though I've only known you a week. I've loved you since I saw you on the stand, Aidan answered. You were like a bird in a golden cage, and I wanted to set you free. They stood embracing atop the old tower, under the infinite sky, and it seemed the whole world belonged only to them. But happiness couldn't last forever. A week later, Martha, Isabella's maid, couldn't bear it and told the Duke about the secret meetings. The explosion was terrible. Duke Aldrich summoned his daughter to the throne room. His face was white with rage. You've disgraced our house, he thundered. Secret meetings with a baron's son, riding through forests like a commoner. What were you thinking? Father, I love him. Love? The Duke struck his fist on the armrest of the throne. You are a Duke's daughter. You have no right to love. You have duty. What duty? To marry a man I don't love? To bear heirs like a brood mare? To live my life in a golden cage? Isabella was surprised by her own boldness. She had never spoken to her father like this. The Duke stood, approached her, looked at her with icy contempt. You're confined to your chambers until the day of betrothal. Guards will be at the door day and night. And if you try to escape even once, I'll send men to kill that pup. Understood? Isabella paled. Father, understood. Yes, she whispered. For 3 days she sat imprisoned, didn't eat, didn't sleep, just sat by the window looking at the distant forest where she had met with Aidan. He was probably waiting, not understanding why she didn't come. On the 4th day, a stone wrapped in a piece of cloth flew through her window. Isabella picked it up, unwrapped it. A note. Uneven handwriting, angular letters. Aidan rarely wrote, preferring sword to pen. Isabella. What happened? Why aren't you coming? I wait for you every morning. If something's wrong, give a sign. I'll come for you even to hell. You're Aidan. Tears poured down her cheeks. She took a quill with trembling hand, wrote an answer. Aidan. Father found out everything. I'm locked up. In 3 days, betrothal to the Count. If you try anything, Father will kill you. Please don't risk it. Just remember me. I will love you until my last breath. Your Isabella. She tied the note to the stone and threw it out the window, hoping his people would find it. Aidan found the note an hour later, read it, reread it, crushed it in his fist. No, he growled. No. His friends, young knights with whom he competed in tournaments, surrounded him. Aidan, what happened? He showed them the note. The Duke has locked her up, is marrying her to the Count, and I can't do anything. If I storm the castle, he'll kill me. If I do nothing, she'll marry another and be unhappy her whole life. The friends exchanged glances. Aidan, said one of them, Thierry, there's one way. Dangerous, but possible. What? Challenge the Count to a duel. In medieval traditions, the right to trial by combat still existed. If someone disputed something, he could challenge the opponent to battle, and the winner in battle was right before God. Aidan knew this, but to challenge Count Lorenzo, an influential man, to a duel over a woman. It's madness, he said. But it's the only chance, Thierry answered. Aidan was silent for a long time, then nodded. All right, I'll challenge him. The day of betrothal arrived. The castle was decorated with garlands of flowers. Tables groaned with delicacies. Guests had come from all corners of the kingdom. Isabella stood in her room in a white dress, looking like a ghost. Martha arranged her hair, adorned her with jewels. My lady, you're so pale. Leave me, Martha. The maid bowed and left. Isabella approached the window, looked at the sky. Aidan, wherever you are. No, I love you. I'll always love you. A knock at the door. My lady, it's time. The great hall of the castle was full of people. Duke Aldrich sat on the throne. Beside him, Count Lorenzo in a luxurious doublet, self-satisfied as a peacock. Isabella entered, walking slowly, as to an execution. Everyone watched her. She stopped before the Count. He took her hand, kissed it, coldly, formally. The priest began reading the prayer, and suddenly the doors of the hall burst open with a crash. On the threshold stood Aidan, in full armor, with a sword at his side, eyes burning like coals. Stop! His voice thundered through the hall. Everyone turned. A hum of surprise. Someone screamed. The Duke jumped from the throne. Seize him! Guards! But Aidan raised his hand. I demand the right to trial by combat, he shouted. I challenge Count Lorenzo's claim to the hand of Isabella de Montefalcone. The hall exploded with exclamations. The Count paled. This is outrageous. But lawful, Aidan stepped forward. By the ancient laws of chivalry, I have the right to challenge you to battle. If you win, Isabella is yours. If I win, she is free. The Duke hurled his goblet to the floor. This is lawlessness. You're a baron's son. You have no right. My sword gives me the right. Aidan drew his blade. And my love for her. Isabella stood with her hands over her mouth, not believing what was happening. Count Lorenzo looked at the Duke, at Aidan, at Isabella. Very well, he hissed through his teeth. I accept the challenge. And when I kill this pup, no one will dare challenge my right again. The duel was set for the next morning at dawn. All night Aidan didn't sleep. He cleaned his armor, sharpened his sword, prayed. His friends sat nearby. Aidan, Count Lorenzo, is an experienced warrior. He participated in crusades, killed dozens of men. I know. You might lose. I know. And then they'll marry her to him, and you will be buried, Aidan finished. I know all this, but I have no other choice. Thierry put his hand on his shoulder. Then fight, brother. Fight like never before. The dawn was cold and gray. All the nobility gathered in the square before the castle. They built an arena. Heralds announced the conditions of the duel. Fight to first blood, or to death. Aidan entered the arena. The armor fit perfectly. The sword was sharp as a razor. His heart beat steadily. Count Lorenzo entered from the other side, in expensive armor decorated with gold, a heavy two-handed sword. They stood facing each other. Isabella sat in the stand next to her father, face white, hands clasped in prayer. The herald raised the flag. Begin. The Count attacked first. A powerful overhead strike. Aidan parried, retreated. Second strike. Third. Lorenzo was stronger, more experienced. His strikes were precise as clockwork. But Aidan was faster. He dodged, parried, sought a breach in the Count's defense. 1 minute, 2, 5. The spectators watched, holding their breath. Isabella cried, not taking her eyes from the duel. Aidan. Aidan, please. The Count struck at his side. Aidan didn't make it. The blade slashed across the armor, leaving a deep dent. He staggered. The crowd gasped. Lorenzo smirked. Surrender, boy. You've lost. But Aidan straightened, wiped blood from his split lip, not yet, and attacked. It was fury. A barrage of strikes, one after another. Aidan didn't think about defense, only attack. The count began to retreat. Once, twice, 3 times. Aidan feinted left, Lorenzo bought it, and Aidan struck right. The sword passed between the armor plates, plunging into the count's shoulder. Blood. Lorenzo screamed, dropped his sword, fell to his knees. Aidan put the blade to his throat. Do you yield? The count breathed heavily, holding his bleeding shoulder. Yes, yes, I yield. The herald raised the flag. Victor, Sir Aidan de Valtera. The crowd exploded with roaring. Isabella jumped from her seat, ignoring her father, the guests' propriety. She ran down to the arena. Aidan removed his helmet, turned, and she threw herself at him, embracing, kissing, crying, and laughing at once. You did it. You did it. For you, I'll do anything, he whispered, embracing her. They stood in the middle of the arena to applause and shouts, and they didn't care about the whole world. But Duke Aldrich did not applaud. He sat in the stand, white with rage, and his gaze promised revenge. After the duel, the Duke summoned Aidan to the throne room. You won according to law, he said coldly. But that doesn't mean I'll give you my daughter. But the law? The law says the duel contests the betrothal. Fine. There's no betrothal. But that doesn't mean you can marry her. You're a baron's son. She's a duke's daughter. This marriage is impossible. Then I'll take her. Aidan stepped forward. We'll leave. Far away, where your power means nothing. The Duke smirked. You think she'll agree? To abandon everything, castle, wealth, position, for a life of wandering with a penniless knight? Yes. She'll agree. Then ask her yourself. That night, Aidan met Isabella in the garden, secretly, for the last time. She ran to him, embraced him, not letting go. What did father say? Aidan took her hands. Isabella. He won't let us marry. The only way out is to run away. Now. Tonight. I'll take you with me. We'll go to the ends of the earth. I'll fight in tournaments, earn money. We'll be poor, but free. We'll be together. Isabella looked at him. Tears glistened in her eyes. You really want me to abandon everything? I want you to be happy. If happiness for you is here in the castle in safety, stay. But if happiness for you is freedom, is me, then come with me. Isabella closed her eyes. Inside, her two worlds battled. The world she grew up in, safe, predictable, proper, and the world Aidan promised, dangerous, unpredictable, alive. She opened her eyes. I'm coming with you. At midnight, they met at the old gates. Aidan held 2 horses by their reins. Isabella came in a simple dress with a small bundle of belongings. Are you sure? He asked one last time. Yes. They mounted the horses and galloped away from the castle, away from this life, toward the unknown. Behind them, candles burned in the castle windows. Duke Aldrich stood at the window and watched as his daughter disappeared into the night, and his face was stone. They rode all night, through forests, through fields, across rivers, stopped only to let the horses rest. By morning, they reached a small village at the edge of the Duke's domain. They stopped at a roadside tavern, went inside. The owner, a fat man with a gray beard, looked at them curiously. How may I serve you, my lord? A room. Food. Discretion. Aidan threw several coins on the table. The owner pocketed the money and nodded. Understood each other. The room was simple, a bed, a table, a window overlooking the forest. None of the castle's luxury. Isabella sat on the bed, suddenly realizing what she had done. Fled. Abandoned her father. Gave up everything. For a man she'd known 2 weeks. Aidan sat beside her, took her hand. Do you regret it? She looked at him. At his face scarred from battles. At his eyes, full of love and worry. No, she whispered. I regret nothing. He kissed her. Long. Tenderly. It was their first night together. And in the morning they were awakened by a knock at the door. Aidan instantly jumped up, grabbed his sword. Who's there? Me, the tavern owner's voice. My lord, there are the Duke's soldiers. Looking for someone? A girl and a knight. Aidan's heart sank. How many? A dozen. Armed, asking at all the taverns. Aidan turned to Isabella. She had paled. Father sent pursuit after me. Get dressed. Quickly. We're leaving. They slipped out the back way, mounted the horses, galloped away, while the soldiers searched the tavern. But hiding for long was impossible. Duke Aldrich was a powerful man. His men were everywhere. The next days turned into flight. They slept in forests, ate what they could find or buy, avoided main roads, hid from patrols. Isabella didn't complain, even when her hands were covered with calluses from the rains, even when rain soaked them to the skin, even when there was nothing to eat. She was with Aidan, and that was enough. A week later, they reached the border of a neighboring kingdom. There, Duke Aldrich's power meant nothing. They stopped in a small town, rented a room at a tavern. Aidan signed up for a local tournament. They needed money. Isabella watched him prepare for battle, and her heart clenched. Aidan, what if I lose? He smirked. I won't lose. How are you so sure? He approached her, took her hands. Because I have you. And that gives me the strength to defeat anyone. He won the tournament. And the next, and another. They began to live. Modestly, simply, but freely. 3 months passed. They were happy. Isabella learned to cook, sew, keep a simple household. Aidan earned money at tournaments. In the evenings, they sat by the fireplace, and he told her stories about distant lands where they would go, about the sea she so wanted to see, about a life full of adventures. But one evening, there was a knock at the door. Aidan opened it. On the threshold stood a man in a cloak. He lowered the hood. It was Thierry, Aidan's friend. His face was grim. Thierry? What happened? Aidan, I have to tell you, your father is dead. Aidan froze. What? Baron de Valtra passed away 3 days ago. Hart, you're the only heir. You must return. Accept the lands. Isabella approached, took Aidan's hand. I didn't know, he whispered. We hadn't spoken after I ran away with Isabella. He was furious, disowned me. But before his death, he forgave you. Thierry handed him a scroll. Here's his last letter. Aidan unrolled the parchment, read. His hand trembled. My son. I was wrong. You chose love, and I chose duty all my life, and was unhappy. Forgive me. Live. Love. Be happy. Your father. Aidan closed his eyes. Tears rolled down his cheeks. Isabella embraced him. They returned. The funeral was solemn. The entire barony came to say farewell. Aidan became Baron de Valtra. Isabella, his wife. They were married by the local priest. It seemed everything had worked out. But one evening, a messenger arrived at the Baron's castle. From Duke Aldrich. The letter was brief. My daughter, I was wrong to wish you unhappiness. Forgive an old father. I'm gravely ill. The doctors say, not long left for me. Come to say goodbye. I beg you. Isabella read and cried. He's dying. My father's dying. Aidan embraced her. We'll go. Right now. They arrived at Montefalcone Castle the next day. The Duke lay in his chambers, pale, emaciated. Disease had eaten him from within. Isabella rushed to him, took his hand. Father, my daughter. He smiled weakly. You came. I was so afraid you wouldn't come. How could you think that? I treated you terribly, tried to break your will. But you were stronger. You chose love. And I'm proud of you. He turned his head to Aidan standing nearby. Baron de Valtra? Aidan approached, dropped to one knee. Forgive me, the Duke whispered. I was blind. You love her. Truly. Protect her. I swear on my life, Aidan answered. The Duke closed his eyes. Good. Now I can die in peace. He died the next morning, quietly, in his sleep. The funeral was magnificent. All the nobility of the kingdom came to say farewell. Isabella stood by her father's coffin and cried. Aidan held her hand. After the funeral, they stayed at the castle for several days, needed to deal with the inheritance. And one evening, as they sat in the garden, Isabella said, Aidan, I'm pregnant. He froze, looked at her. What? I'm expecting a child. Our child? Aidan jumped up, lifted her in his arms, spun her around. This is incredible. We're going to be parents. Isabella laughed through tears. Yes, we will be. They stood embracing under the stars, and it seemed nothing could destroy their happiness. But fate was preparing one last blow. A month later, war began on the kingdom's borders. A neighboring state attacked. The king summoned all vassals to defend the lands. Aidan, as a baron, had to go. Isabella begged him not to go. Please, stay. War is death. I can't, he stroked her hair. It's my duty. I'm a knight. I swore an oath to defend the kingdom. What about me? What about our child? I'll return, I promise. I'll return to you. But in his eyes, she saw what he didn't say aloud. Fear. Aidan left for war with his detachment of knights. Isabella remained at the castle waiting for the child. The months dragged painfully slowly. Letters from Aidan came rarely. Short. I'm alive. I love you. Wait for me. Isabella's belly grew. She felt the child move and cried, imagining that Aidan wouldn't see his son or daughter. The war dragged on. And then one cold winter evening, there was a knock at the castle gates. Isabella, already in her 9th month of pregnancy, ordered them opened. On the threshold stood Thierry, covered in mud, blood, with a scar across his entire face. Isabella looked at him and understood everything. No, she whispered. No. Tell me it's not true. Thierry removed his helmet. Tears rolled down his cheeks. He fought like a lion, killed a dozen enemies, saved my life. But an arrow hit his heart. He died instantly, didn't suffer. No! Isabella's scream echoed through the castle. She fell to her knees. Thierry caught her. My lady, he asked me to tell you. He held out a bloodied pendant, the very one Aidan always wore around his neck. He said, tell her I will love her always. In this life and after death. Name our son Aidan, and tell him his father was a knight. Isabella clutched the pendant in her hand and cried, cried, cried. The child was born that same night, a boy, healthy, strong. Isabella held him in her arms and looked at his little face and saw Aidan. The same eyes, the same stubborn chin. Aidan, she whispered. Your name is Aidan. Like your father. She pressed her son to her chest and cried for love that was too short, for happiness that war had taken, for the man who taught her to be free and paid for it with his life. Years passed. Little Aidan grew, becoming more and more like his father. Just as bold, just as freedom-loving. Isabella told him about his father, about how they met, how they fell in love, how they ran away, how they were happy. Mama, do you still love him? The boy asked once. Isabella looked out the window at the stars. Yes, she whispered. I will love him always. Every year, on the day of Aidan's death, Isabella climbed that same tower where he had brought her the first time. She stood at the top, looking at the horizon, and felt him near. His hand on her shoulder, his voice on the wind. I'm here. I'm always with you. 20 years passed. Little Aidan grew up, became a knight, just as fearless as his father. Isabella aged. Her hair turned gray, her face lined with wrinkles, but her eyes still held that spark, the spark of freedom that Aidan had lit in her. One evening she felt tired, very tired. She lay down on the bed. Her son sat beside her, holding her hand. Mama, don't go, she smiled. I'm going to him, my son. I've waited so long for this meeting. Will you see him? Yes. I know I will. She closed her eyes, and the last thing she saw was Aidan, young, in armor, with that same bold smile, extending his hand to her. Ready? A new adventure awaits us. Isabella took his hand, and they went together. Forever. The end. A story about love stronger than death, about freedom that costs everything, about how some meetings change us forever, and about how true love never ends.